This is a photographic record of our 2-month trip of the North Pacific. We visited Japan, Taiwan, Hong Kong, China, Russia, Alaska, Victoria, and Seattle. After we returned home, we realized we hadn't taken nearly enough photos. Our trip started March 28th in Panama and ended back in Panama on June 10th. Landing at Narita Airport, we found the friendly limousine service and took it to our hotel in Yokohama, the Grace Hotel. It was a nice hotel with normal microscopic business-size rooms, but conveniently located right next to a train and subway station. The day after our arrival, we conquered the subway system, learning how to read the maps. Traveling, the subway system in Japan is fantastic. Trains run every 2 to 5 minutes and are perfectly on time. The subway stations are incredible. Some are 5 to 6 stories underground with complete malls, department stores, tons of Starbucks, McDonald's, all kinds of food restaurants, ramen noodle shops, sushi restaurants. Pretty much anything you want can be found in the subway stations. Our first stop was Tokyo Station, which is an incredible building, again with a mall underneath. It is directly across from the Imperial Palace. Since this was during the height of cherry blossom season, the Imperial Palace was set up to deal with huge Japanese crowds. So much so that on the day we visited, Easter Sunday, the helicopters from the TV stations were flying overhead taking pictures of the enormous crowds. Even with the crowds, it was still incredibly beautiful and lots of fun to see the inside of the Imperial Palace grounds. The lakes around the palace are lined with many different varieties of cherry trees. This is an extremely popular place for Japanese to visit the sakura. They can rent boats on the lakes to enjoy viewing the sakura, which is cherry blossoms in Japanese. We boarded our ship and settled into our room. Because of the conflict with North Korea, the inside rooms we booked turned into balconies for the entire trip at no additional cost. We really enjoyed having a balcony, watching the thousands of fishing boats at night and the lights of the cities like Hong Kong and Shanghai. Our first stop was Shimizu, a popular tourist place because of the sometimes incredible views of Mount Fuji, the Black Forest, shrines, and onsens, Japanese hot springs. We went on a bus tour, the highlights of which was our visit to historic Kunozen Toshugo Shrine. This is one of the most beautiful shrines we visited. You can climb the 1,159 stairs or go via the ropeway. We took the ropeway and still had to climb what seemed like several hundred stairs. Walking along the path of the gods, we reached the Matsubara pine tree forest and the Harago no Matsu pine tree, famous in legends, where the celestial dancer performed for a fisherman. We stopped in a little restaurant for tea, and the owner would not let us pay. We discovered our favorite onsen, with many different types of hot water pools, waterfall features, cold plunge, steam room, and sauna. Anime reading rooms, cubby holes, couch pods, hammocks, massage chairs, and a sitting area with a fire pit. But what we loved the most was the terrific healthy food. In every port where we saw a Ferris wheel, we tried to catch a ride. On our way back to the ship, we rode the Dream Plaza ferry wheel next to the docks for a great view of the area. We had 3 days total in Kyoto. Arriving in Kobe, the port for Kyoto, we rode a Ferris wheel and got a bird's eye view of the area. Then hopped aboard the train for our trip to Kyoto. Where we visited the Temple of 1,000 Arches, and then to the Ninja Castle. We spent the night at the Yomoto Ryokan. The next day, we visited the Silver Pavilion, the famous Golden Pavilion, and the Ryojan Temple with its famous rock garden. Nearby, and not often visited, we discover Tazio-in Zen Buddhist Temple. This temple is an active temple, even with foreign visitors staying on site and meditating. The temple gardens are really outstanding. We stopped for matcha, the wonderful Japanese tea. The Awashiyama bamboo forest was very crowded. However, we loved the Saga train, a short ride along the Katsura River. Kagoshima has an active volcano, which let off a little puff of smoke, smelled of sulfur, while we visited the lava field. In Naha, Okinawa, we visited the Shirijo Castle and also the Gardens of the Prince. We enjoyed walking around the town. In Keelung, Taiwan, we were met by tugboat with their fire cannons spraying colored water as a welcome to our entrance. Very few cruise ships stop at Keelung. We only did so because Norwegian changed the itinerary to eliminate the stops in Korea because of the tension in that area. We started with a visit to Shenzhen Park with its Happy Buddha and famous 30-foot-high statue of the Goddess of Mercy. A terrific huge bell with a long, deep gong. We had incredible views of the harbor. Next, we continued to Yaelu Geopark, famous for its Hodo stones, thin spires of rock formed by sedimentary stone and the ocean. Many rock formations have creative names, including the most well-known, the Queen's Head. During a late afternoon visit to Keelung, we were able to visit the famous night market as it was open early. Scooters everywhere, more scooters than cars in Taiwan. Chris was really looking forward to Kaohsiung. His old friend Narcissus Quagliata had built the world's largest stained glass dome in the subway station at the crossing of the red and yellow lines. The history of the universe plays out on the giant dome. They have classical piano concerts every afternoon. The skylights for the windows to light the subway dome are quite interesting. We found a shopping mall with a Ferris wheel on the rooftop and couldn't resist. We enjoyed a Taiwanese dinner in the mall. We spent the night in Hong Kong, but for some reason took very few pictures. We loved the funicular railway and its great view overlooking the city. In Xiamen, we toured upscale market and night market. Our visit to Xiamen was shortened because we had to stay at sea in dense fog for several hours until the port opened. Lots of ships could be seen drifting in and out of the fog. We enjoyed Shanghai very much, a modern city with beautiful streets and parks. We were there on a Sunday and especially liked watching the local people with many different musical presentation and dances, just spontaneous in the park. This 6 by 14-foot TV in a subway station was showing a KFC ad. It highlighted regional specialties. Zhoujijiao is an old water city with a canal that has been restored and turned into a tourist attraction. We took the canal ride and wandered the streets with friends we met on the boat, checking out the many quaint shops, unusual food, and buying pearl bracelets. In Taiwan, we visited an incredible woodblock print shop and the Great Wall. This section of the wall has been newly restored and is quite spectacular. Taiwan is the port city for Beijing. We stopped in Dalian, which is rarely visited. We saw a traditional herbal pharmacy, walked the streets, and flew kites in the park. We re-entered Japan on the northwest coast at Sakaamiyato. They set up tents and brought in about 100 custom agents to clear us back through customs into Japan. We then toured a phenomenal peony garden with many sections of traditional Japanese gardens. The Matsu Castle is one of only a dozen original castles still standing in Japan that hasn't been destroyed by earthquakes, fire, or water. In Nagasaki, we visited the Thomas Glover House and its incredible grounds. Glover made his money selling weapons, developing coal, and finally partnering with Japanese to build ships, thus creating the Mitsubishi Company. Many Japanese love to cosplay, dressing up as geishas or in any period style. Can you believe these cars actually navigate these tiny streets? How would you like to live in this neighborhood and have to climb the stairs carrying your groceries home? We stumbled across an exhibition of the revered Japanese artist Hokusai, which included his famous wave print. The museum itself was quite special. One visitor was a real geisha. We did visit the Nagasaki Atomic Bomb Museum. It was really unpleasant. At almost every port, the locals came and performed some kind of traditional music and dance for our sail away. Miyazaki was our only really bad weather day. We visited a shrine with unusual rock formations in front and nearby gardens. We got totally soaked while on our way back to the ship, cold, blowing rain. In Kochi, the Dakota Castle was constructed in the 1600s on the hill to defend the city below. The structure was partially damaged by fire in the early 1700s, but never faced formal attack. Shikurinji Temple is one of the 88 temples on the Shikoku pilgrimage route. The temple area is just amazing, with its stone meditators clothed in sweaters, incredibly tranquil and beautiful gardens, just a perfect spot to sit quietly and reflect. Makino Botanical Gardens was created by Dr. Tomitaro Makino. Its 6 hectares contain over 3,000 species of plants, many of them discovered by Dr. Makino. The conservatory, with its tropical plants, allowed us to feel like we had returned to Panama for a brief period of time. After an incredible 27-day tour, we said goodbye to our towel animal collection and prepared to spend 8 days in Tokyo. Tokyo was very, very busy, especially since this was Golden Week in Japan. Almost everyone in the country is on vacation for this week. We stayed in a typical residential neighborhood, with a toilet smaller than any in Panama. The sink above the toilet tank uses the toilet fill-up water. Near Shinkanju Station, we saw this incredible performance artist using cans of spray paint to create different pieces of artwork. There is a 20-minute YouTube video of his whole performance. Click the link below. Tokyo is a foodie's paradise, however extremely expensive. Some dinners can cost $500 per person. We discovered 2 interesting food places. One, a restaurant that serves only beef tongue. It was actually quite delicious. And surprise of surprises, Denny's, the U.S. Denny's restaurant, which served gorgeous sushi, wine, and a pork tonkatsu, with all the trimmings for $12. This complete outfit will cost you around $6,000, and you can get the matching tennis shoes for $600. Many places throughout the city have beautiful tranquil parks, including tea rooms. Golden Week did have one big advantage. There were many, many special events happening in the city. We visited this parade, and a flea market in a park that included an earthquake simulator. Hakone is a wonderful day trip from Tokyo via the Romance Car train, another small train and ropeway to the active volcano. Where you can purchase black eggs. These eggs are boiled in the volcanic water. For some reason, they turn black, but they looked and tasted pretty normal otherwise. One of the big tourist attractions, and deservedly so, is the Robot Cafe. They have 4 shows a night at $85 a person, with about 200 people per show. It is expensive, but they do not disappoint. Sankian Gardens in Yokohama is a popular place to shoot wedding photos for the soon-to-be married. It also has an incredible old-style farmhouse, complete with a working wood-burning kitchen from around the time of the samurai. We had our first formal tea ceremony at the beautiful Sankijan Garden. The ladies were very popular and nice. The matcha tea was excellent. In the gardens, there were also more wedding photographers. This bride-to-be had the most unusual headdress we had ever seen. Kamakura was the political center of medieval Japan. In the 12th century, it was full of samurai and shoguns. On the walk to Kotoku Inn, the Great Buddha, we discovered this very stunning garden. The Great Buddha is the second largest Buddha in Japan. It was swept away by a tsunami in 1498. The electric railway was lots of fun to ride, but at the end we encountered rain. We headed back to Yokohama to board the ship for our final 20-day cruise ending in Seattle. Aomori was our first stop in northern Japan. It is famous for its yearly parade of floats made from paper. The paper is handmade kuzu paper which shrinks when it dries. It is glued while wet onto wire frames that are supported by a wood structure and backlit with lights. In Hakodate, we visited a lake and took a walk around it. In Sapporo, our last Japanese stop, because of its northern location, the cherry blossoms were lovely and in full bloom. So sakura cherry blossoms said hello to us when we landed in Tokyo and goodbye as we left Japan. We visited an onsen and ate food from vending machines. These cantaloupes must be really good at $155 for 5 of them. We did not try. On our way to Petropavlovsk, we had C day occupied by learning vegetable carving. Relaxing and enjoying the stunning views. Petropavlovsk was cold, barren, and the bleakest place we visited. It is a city landlocked on a peninsula in Russia. The only way to return to mainland Russia is via plane, and a ticket costs about 1 year's salary for the locals. Boats out of the country are not an option. People were friendly, and our tour guide begged us for US dollars. After saying goodbye to Russia, we had 3 days on board at sea. When we crossed the international date line, we repeated a sea day. Seaward is a beautiful place. We rented a car and drove out to the Exit Glacier, visited Husky Dog Kennel where they prepare the dogs for Iditarod dog sledding event, and then back to downtown. We were very lucky we got to visit both the Hubbard Glacier and Glacier Bay. We had a spectacularly beautiful day while we visited Hubbard Glacier. The clouds and sun provided excellent photos. We were lucky and got to see several icebergs calve off the glacier. We spent several hours at the glacier. The view from our balcony was terrific because the captain kept turning the ship so everyone would see. The following day, we visited Glacier Bay. We picked up rangers for the tour. The weather was not particularly nice, but we were able to purchase photos from the rangers, which I used here. As we were leaving Glacier Bay, we were visited on our balcony by seagulls. Someone was feeding them from an upper deck. Skagway, Alaska was our next stop, and hands down favorite town in Alaska. We boarded the White Pass Railway and took the train to the top, crossed briefly into Canada and back down. It was a cloudy day with off and on rain, but the views were very pretty. We did see a black bear on the way back down. When we got to town, we went to the Red Onion Saloon, an exceptionally well-run tourist spot. The staff was friendly and very efficient. The food was excellent too. It was lots of fun. Really a surprise for a place that has so much tourist hype. The Red Onion was a brothel in the 1890s, and they restored the upstairs as much as they could back to that period. Our next port was Juneau, Alaska. We enjoyed the town and our tour of Mendenhall Glacier and waterfall. Icy Point is another exceptionally well-run tourist spot. We did 2 terrific tourist activities, taking an ATV tour and enjoying sampling the pine tree new growth. We then rode the mile-long zip line from the top of the mountain back down to the ship. The zip line achieves speeds of 55 miles an hour. Ketchikan, Alaska was our last stop, and we visited the incredible totem pole collection just outside of town. We are saying goodbye to our home for the last 48 days. We went on 3 Norwegian cruises. We chose Norwegian because of their great restaurant selection, good prices, and incredible itineraries. There were only 2 days at sea while touring the Far East. We had several 2- and 3-day stays in great ports. Our cruise ended in Seattle. We got right off the ship and went to Lake Union for a float plane trip to Victoria Island. This was very special, as Chris was really lucky to get to sit in the co-pilot's seat. We stayed at a great bed and breakfast called Abigail's. We rented a car and drove to the potholes. On the way, stopping at Carter's Creek. Carter Creek and the potholes are quite a special area. The next day, we went to the fabulous Bouchard Gardens. Bouchard Gardens were hands down the best gardens we visited on our whole trip. Incredibly beautiful, each section after section a surprise. Enjoyed seeing the harbor from an electric boat and watching the jellyfish. We had a terrific English tea. We ran across a Walmart like none we have ever seen. If Walmart did this everywhere, they would have a better reputation. Craig Doddridge Castle, built by the Scotsman Robert Dunsmuir, a coal baron, he was very unpopular and had many family problems. We could not help but notice how his castle was dark in comparison to the other Scotman, Thomas Glover's light and airy house in Nagasaki. We returned to Seattle via Alaska Airlines, rented a car. Chris went to a glass-blowing workshop. toured Del Chihuli's incredible glass gardens. On the way back to Panama, we stopped at the Vizcaya Museum in Miami, a castle built by Robert Deering in the early 1900s. Robert was a closet gay, as was his architect and designer. He never came out of the closet. However, Vizcaya did. At the beginning of the AIDS epidemic, Vizcaya held white parties to raise money for people with AIDS in the Miami area. Really worth the visit if you were in Miami.